For this webinar, I will be talking about LIBdentity, ways in creating and marketing the identity of your library. I am currently a librarian here in the Henry Luce III Library of Central Philippine University. I am connected with the graduate school library, and at the same time, I also work for our latest project, the BAHANDIAN Institutional Repository. And at the same time, I'm also the one managing the online platforms such as the website and the social media pages of the library. When I was first invited to speak by the MLIS class, I was reluctant to accept because I am not at all a library marketing expert. But as the one managing the online content and the social media of the library, I think I can share some insights based on our experiences about what works and what doesn't. It has been over a year now since COVID-19 changed our lives. And in such a short time, there were so many changes, not just in the world, but also in libraries here in the Philippines. In my own experience, I only started working here last March, and just 2 weeks after starting my new job, the city government announced the first lockdown. So when we got back in June, there were so many changes and the atmosphere was very different. And there was some time that we were afraid that maybe we might even lose our jobs. And we really had to think of innovations and changes to adjust to the current situation. I first applied as a cataloger, but right now my job is very different from what I applied for. And in fact, what I'm doing now didn't even exist in the library before. So the pandemic and the changes it brought about required new tasks and job descriptions in the library. For those who have attended previous PLY webinars, maybe you can recall that last August, me and Vince also had a talk on the virtual reference services of the library last August. But what we talked about then feels so outdated now because of the new changes, and the changes are fast. And in this webinar, I will share with you what we did in the library. We had a sort of rebranding, and also I will share our launching and marketing for the Bahandian Institutional Repository. But at the same time, I will also share what you can do in your libraries. So what is LIBdentity? I first encountered this term when I was invited to speak, and of course, it is a combination of the words library and identity. This is the outline of my presentation for this afternoon. I will discuss about the library identity and the changes here in the library. And also for your libraries, I will talk about visual identity and branding, your library website, the current changes in social media, and tips on creating engaging content. And at the end of my presentation, I will share with you our marketing strategies for the Bahandian Institutional Repository. And the library has never done something like this before, so it's very interesting. So identity, it means the fact of being who or what a person or thing is. Identity makes you who you are. It's how you present yourself, how you dress, and how you speak. So it's the same for institutions and libraries. We have something unique that sets us apart from others. So it's something you should think about. What sets you apart from others? The most popular brand I can think of with its own unique and distinct identity that you can recognize it immediately is Apple. So they are known for their gadgets with sleek and minimalist design. And I will also share with you about BERTHA. So BERTHA is our virtual reference assistant. We launched her last June 2020 and she was very well received to our surprise. So she has a very distinct look, and in her post as herself, she has a very strong independent woman vibe. But when it comes to library services, she is approachable, quick to serve, reliable, smart, and knowledgeable. So this is the tone we are trying to achieve when we are interacting as Bertha. She became more than just an avatar, people could actually relate to her. And here are some fan art that our students have made on Bertha. So we have a lot of really talented artists here. So how is the library identity of the Henry Luce III Library changing? According to our library director, we are building a culture of connectivity, creating a culture of learning new ideas and innovation and applying those ideas into action. Here is the new logo of the Henry Luce III Library. If you go inside the campus of Central Philippine University, our building is actually very unique and distinct from other buildings. It has a very recognizable architecture, and our logo, we just started using this last month. And what I like about this is that from the logo alone, you can recognize the library. It's color blue and gold, depicting the colors of the university, and the shape itself, it resembles the library at the same time. If you look closer, it actually looks like a stack of books. So the logo is very simple, very minimalist, but just one look at it, you can recognize the library. So we commissioned a designer to design this for us, also one of our graduates here from CPU. Actually, our videos and promotional stuff are mostly we get our own graduates from the advertising or the digital media and interactive arts courses. And I will share with you here is the old logos versus the new logos. As you can see, our first logos were just very simple, generic library pictures, but the next logo is unique and distinct. Aside from the colored logos, we also commissioned a grayscale logo in case that we need printed materials that are not colored. Here are our inspirations for our logo. We decided that we wanted something simple because if you notice that popular brands don't even have really complicated logos, they are simple but very memorable. Aside from the logo, we are also trying to change our identity as a library. We are trying to be more focused on research and scholarly works, and we are also trying to be more involved with faculty and students. Just last year, we started assigning liaison librarians for each college. And we also want to focus more on research because as librarians, how can we help our students and faculty conducting their own researches if we ourselves don't know about research? So this is a slow process, but we are trying to work towards it. And we're also trying to be more responsive to the needs of users and adaptive to new trends and technologies. Aside from the repository and the VRS, we are not planning to stop there. In fact, we are in the process of updating our library management system, and soon we will be renovating our library building. So here are some useful tips on how to create and promote your own library identity. I will talk about visual identity and branding, your library website, the current changes in social media, and creating engaging content. As I always say, all libraries are different. Just take what you can apply, but each library is unique with unique needs, and what's good for one library isn't always good for another. You should always consider your own community and users. I will talk more about the promotional activities because some people think that a simple post on social media is already marketing. But that is just one part of marketing because marketing is an active cycle. It involves deciding goals, researching your market, trying to determine your target market, setting objectives, and also evaluating your strategies. But I will be talking more about promotional activities because this is what I am most familiar with. So what is brand and branding? In identity, it is very similar to how brands and branding works for businesses and companies. So it is creating a recognizable product or services, building an idea which people can understand, and marketing it as unique from others. And it is also the sum total of everyone's perception about you, the way people feel about your library, and the way people describe your library to others. So it is identifying a service which is recognizable as yours. I think the library was successful here with BERTHA because right now we are still in the continually marketing BERTHA, but we have noticed that because of the good feedback from students and teachers, they are also the ones promoting BERTHA through word of mouth, through Facebook posts, and other means. So this is from the book, The Library Marketing Toolkit by Ned Potter. He says that brand exists in the way people feel about something, but branding is the attempt to make those feelings positive. So next is visual identity. It is the sum total of the way everything looks, the message this puts out. So it includes your building, the layout, the books, your website design, your aesthetics. So as a person, you also have your own visual identity, your fashion, your taste. So this is similar when you are creating a visual identity for your library or institution. So some of you might say that this is not the specialty of librarians, but there are advantages to creating your own visual identity that is recognizable right away. So it makes you more easily memorable. It makes you stand out from the rest, and you don't have to waste a lot of time trying to explain yourself. For example, in our logo, we don't need to introduce ourselves as the library. If you are in CPU, it is already recognizable. So it unites and gives cohesion to multiple aspects of the library. For example, the university colors here are blue and gold. And in our graphics, in our own platforms, we are trying to incorporate those colors. So they are recognizably from CPU. So if you still don't have your own house style or your own visual identity for your promotional materials, for your website, maybe now is the time to decide. So here are some tips on creating your in-house style if you don't already have one. So first tip is do your homework, ask for feedback. You can ask your students, your users, of what is distinct about your library. And this style should also be accessible. The color should be consistent. The fonts, you should also consider printed materials. That's why in our logo, we also had a black and white logo. And it must also be accessible for those with visual problems. So in the library, we are trying our best to also be accessible to those with impairments. And this is, you should consider this in fonts, in your layouts, and choose a color palette. So they say that the best color palette is dark colors with light colors. It can easily be seen. Invest in design. So for us here in the library, we really decided that good design is worth it. So we got talented designers because this is not our expertise. We just give our designers the ideas on what vision we want to achieve. So make language a priority. In what we do, we also think of our target audience. Our language should be simple and understandable because now people are easily distracted, and in social media, if your post is too long, in 3 seconds, no one's gonna read the rest of it. So it's important to be brief, succinct, and to tell the essence of something in a few words. So next is write a manual. So if you have your own house style, you can like take notes and keep documentation of what your design choices are, so it would be easier for the other librarians to be consistent with your design. Here is an example of a good brand identity. So this is from University of Texas Arlington Library. So they really have their own brand toolkit. It is detailing the story of their brand, and they even have a guide for those people who may want to create a design for their library. So they have guides on their logos, fonts, colors, and multimedia. I'm also trying to create something similar for the library. So next, we will be talking about the library website. For me, this is the library's most important online platform. There was a focus on social media due to the pandemic, but for me, library should also focus more on their website. So the website should contain all the essential information about the library, and the website is more visible and searchable in search engines compared to social media. And your own website is your presence online. And for me, social media is not enough. And if you are more advanced, you can even create your own unique platforms in your website. So if you have a website or are planning to create one, here are some tips on how to improve your website and what to add if you are creating a new website. So customers want something to read, watch, and listen to when they visit a website. So in our page, you can see that we have a video about the library, news about the library, and all the essential information on the front page. And of course, they go to the website to answer their own questions. So it is good if on the front page, you put your FAQs, your chat services, email, and phone numbers. And of course, also basic information about the library, like your address, who your librarians and staff are, and your basic services. Of course, a website also needs staff to update it regularly. So I have heard some librarians say that because they have an IT expert, they are not actually motivated to learn about technology. But in my opinion, as librarians, you should also update your knowledge. And even if you have an IT person in your library, the idea should still come from the librarian because you know best your services and your users. And for our library, we have an IT to maintain the website, but there are also people who write content for the website. And it's also good to have goals on usage growth and engagement. Once we establish a website, it should not be stagnant. It should be continually growing and updating. Of course, it should also link to social media pages, and at the same time, your social media pages should also link to your website. And last but not the least, it should be mobile friendly. So the trend now, because more and more people are using smartphones to use the internet for their own research, it is important that your website is accessible across all devices. I have noticed that some websites have outdated designs, and when you check the mobile version, it's not very good. So when I'm the one updating or changing something in the website, I always check the website on my phone on what it looks like on the end user's part. So this is, if you are blogging or familiar with online content, maybe you are knowledgeable about SEO. So SEO or search engine optimization is kind of similar to indexing, but online. So in this principle, you are trying to make your website more friendly for Google to index it. So if you want to know more about SEO, there are so many online resources, and if you are creating content for your library website, it's very good to learn about this. So you can visit our library website on library.cpu.edu.ph. We are using WordPress, and as you can see here, all our essential services are right in the front page, and it's very simple and minimalist. Here is one of our works in progress is the library subject guides. Actually, in libraries outside the Philippines, LibGuides is a big thing. So these are usually librarian created content, and we are using this for our liaison librarians. So each of our liaison librarians assigned for each college are making their own guides on their specific subjects. So right now, what we are putting here in the subject guides are our new books, our free online resources for each college, and in the future, we are planning to add our own content. And if you don't have a website yet, there are so many online platforms free and by subscription. So for example, Wix and Weebly are free, but there are paid options with more features. And Google Sites, WordPress, Blogger are also popular options. And library guides, if you want to have one, you can check out Subjects Plus. It is an open source software, but you would need a lot of coding and customization. And of course, social media. Social media is a good tool, but also focus on your website and other platforms because social media is volatile and can change any moment. We must remember that there are private companies owning social media and they also have their own agendas. Though the Philippines is one of the countries with the highest numbers in social media, not actually everyone uses social media. There might be some people might not have gadgets, some people might not have internet access, and some people just choose not to have social media. And there are so many changes in social media. For example, if you are the social media manager of your library, you might have installed the app on your phone so you can monitor the messages or the notifications. But just a few months ago, they changed the app to Facebook Creator Studio app from the Facebook Pages app. So I have this app on my phone so I can check the incoming messages for BERTHA. And here are some tips to create engaging content on social media. Visuals, images, and graphics attract the most attention. If you can notice, there are always memes, always videos being promoted in social media because they're the content that drives the most engagement. So if you can't beat them, join them. So what I am trying to do when I'm updating social media is I try to check and get inspired by other organizations in their social media as well. Ideally, the descriptions, if you have photos, should be short, ideally 1 to 2 sentences. And you should also keep in mind that in social media, there are ideal sizes for photos and graphics. For example, if you have a blog entry, the ideal size is 640 by 360 pixels. So if you want to learn more, there are also many resources online. And the trend now is simple, minimal graphics with relevant content to the user. There are now many free tools available if you are not very talented in design. For example, Canva is very popular because they already have some pre-made templates. There is a paid version, but the free version has already so many features. And there are also websites and apps similar to Canva where you can edit photos. And for images, there are actually websites that can give you free and royalty-free images. You can use them without credit because they have no copyright anymore. So there are websites like Pixabay, Unsplash, and Pexels. And some knowledge on photo editing is also good. And it's also nice if you have on your own computer some basic photo editing applications, and these are the ones that I am using. So this has been widely discussed before, tips for increasing visibility and reach on social media. Facebook groups is a very good tool in sharing your posts, also email and word of mouth. And if you are running out of ideas on what to post, on graphics, maybe you can tap some people who are more talented in this field. You can get your own students and your faculty who support the library. For example, for our library, for our voiceovers, there's one English teacher who always joins us because she really wants to support the library. And I think physical items such as brochures, calling cards, and flyers are still valuable. Just like one time here in the library, a foreign student went in and she still wasn't aware of our online platforms. So we gave her something physical, like a brochure, in order for her to know more about our library. I think these are still important. So I would like to share with you that during the Emerging International Voices webinars, Luke Swarthout, the librarian from New York Public Library, he shared something that surprised me because their priority is actually not social media because they are so concerned about privacy and about accessibility issues. And there's this Netflix documentary called The Social Dilemma, which details like the problems on social media. Like for example, social media doesn't care about truth. It cares more about what drives the most engagement. So what I'm saying is social media is a good tool, but we should also not depend on it because social media, we use it because a lot of our users are there, but there are also a lot of ethical disadvantages. And it's actually now that social media companies are rethinking the way they do things. But keep in mind that social media also takes work because someone has to sit down, someone has to update. And some people think it's easy when it's actually not. And it takes work because the platform changes quickly and you should always be aware of the new features. And I think that's why having a library website is important, because relying on social media, you don't know what will change, and who knows, maybe the company might ban your profile or something. But these are some things that can make social media posting easier. Actually, there are apps, there are paid software where you can register, and it can update multiple social media at the same time, but they are paid. So there is a post scheduling feature. Maybe if you're the one managing the social media, you can plan your posts ahead and schedule them. And right now there is a feature. If you have an Instagram account, the posts on your Facebook, you can post them also automatically on your Instagram. I will be sharing about our launching and marketing for the Bahandian Institutional Repository. So this is our latest online platform, which we just launched in February. And Bahandian means a container of treasure in Hiligaynon. So Bahandian is the first academic institutional repository in the Visayas. But before launching Bahandian, we had to create what identity and vision we wanted for it. So we had to think of a name, something unique with a local identity, a logo which is reflecting the value of scholarly works, but at the same time reflecting its name. And we also had a launching video, because right now, video production is quite important, because it's how we convey our message to our users. So we had to plan, we had to write a script, get a director, and actually shoot the video. And of course, our promotional images and graphics. So these are the first drafts of our logo. We had a literal treasure chest, but as we were discussing this picture, maybe the treasure chest was somewhat of a Western image. So we needed to think of something local. So while just looking at this logo, I had a sudden idea, and I got a scratch paper in order to sketch it. So I will show you our first drafts of the final logo for Bahandian. So this is my sketch of the draft of the logo, and our designer rendered it. So we have a black and white version and also a colored version of the logo. So you can see our repository at repository.cpu.edu.ph. And we also commissioned a designer to design our social media posts, because we also use this as our advertising. As you can see, it is very simple, very minimal, but it's very nice to look at. To promote Bahandian, we also thought of many ways, and there were many people involved. Of course, the internal communications of the university is involved. People from other offices helped us, and of course, the administration really wanted Bahandian launch to be broadcasted to as many people as possible. So they contacted their contacts in traditional media, but for the first time, we also used bloggers here in Iloilo City. And for the first time, we also had paid promotions on Facebook and Instagram. And we're also planning for the continuous sharing of the platform to the public. So it doesn't end in the launching, where we still have many plans for it. So one of the things we did here is we connected with the bloggers, Iloilo Blogger Society. I am a member of this group, and they have a lot of followers here in Iloilo City. So we got 5 blogs to share on social media and their websites as well. Iloilo Today is one of the big bloggers here in Iloilo City, and he has around more than 100,000 followers on Facebook. And this blog and page really helped increase our reach when it comes to our promotion during the launching. So we sent our own PR materials, and the bloggers wrote their own materials based on it. And this one is on IBS Digital Network. It's the blog of Iloilo Blogger Society, but it was also featured in 4 other blogs with big followings too. And they also created their own social media posts about Bahandian. But these are paid posts, because of course, blogging is not easy, and we are also paying for their followers. And I think it was effective because a lot of people heard about Bahandian and about the CPU Henry Luce library as well. And for the first time, we tried social media boosting. You can select your target audience by followers or by region, and you can also select the time period in which you want to have the ad shown. So it really depends. We got something really affordable. You can set your budget per day or during the promotion period. So we ran 2 ads on Facebook because we thought that if we just post it, we're not sure if it's gonna be always on people's timelines. So if you pay for it, at least you have the assurance that it will always be shown on the news feeds of the Facebook users. So this is an example of one of our ads. And I was the one who wrote this. Actually, the first ad, the description is quite long. But when I saw the ads by Elsevier and Scopus, they are very short, but they are phrased in a way that it makes you want to click or makes the user curious. So it was my inspiration for writing the short ad descriptions. So I use the tagline, "Bahandian, knowledge is no longer shelved," because it is the phrase that we use in our promotional video. So I took inspiration from the posts of others like Scopus, Elsevier. Their posts are very short, very simple, but it leads you to action. Like it makes you want to click their website and check them out. So in creating your identity, here is a short checklist: your visual identity, your branding, your website, social media pages, creating engaging content, but it must also be connected to your services and accessible to users. So here are my conclusions for this topic. So having a distinct identity is essential in promoting your library. Your services are not enough if it is not effectively promoted to users. Next is be creative and original, but don't be afraid to take inspiration from others. It's okay to take inspiration from others as long as we don't copy. We should have our own identity. And I myself, I also check what other libraries, what other organizations are doing. So there is no monopoly on good ideas, and if it's something that you can apply to your library, it's okay to take inspiration from them. And next is, of course, we are librarians and we have different strengths. And this topic might not be our expertise. So if there are other interested people who are more talented than you are, it's very good to collaborate because here in the library, we do not claim to know everything. So most of our projects, most of our new things, we always seek help from experts and collaborate with them. And it's also good to network with others because you also learn things outside of your organization. But it is also important to plan and be consistent. So you launch something, you got your website, your repository, but it doesn't end there because there are more users, more competition, and we should always plan on what we want to achieve in the future. And we should always have a vision. And our library identity is our guide to that future and that vision. So that's it for my presentation. Here are some of my references. So if you have any questions, you can ask in the Facebook chat and the moderators will select the questions for us to answer. You can also visit my blog, malditanglibrarian.com, or follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/malditanglibrarian, and I'm also on Instagram. So thank you very much. I hope you learned something from this presentation.